How you guys doing? I'm Ryan Delgado, and guess what? The painting is done. And as you can see, I don't have it with me right now. Actually, I do, but I'm not going to show it to you guys just yet. I'm going to wait to the very end of the video to show you the final piece. So the final stage was exactly what I said it was going to be. I applied the final glazes and highlights to the figure, and I also brought the background to completion. And here's a look at my palette for the final stage, and this time I stuck with mostly just glazing colors. These are colors that are already transparent, and with my oil medium they become even more transparent glazes. So the point of glazing is to give subtle shifts in value and hue. In other words, you can use glazes to darken a shadow, and you can change its hue. So if an area is too gray, you can use a glaze to make it more red or green or blue or whatever. The important thing to remember, however, is that the painting must be dry on the surface before you begin glazing, otherwise you're going to end up with a mess. And on top of all that, glazing is just fun. It's one of my favorite parts of the painting process. And the great thing about it is if you apply a glaze that you didn't really want, you can always take a rag and just wipe it right out and reapply it. But you want to be careful not to do that too much so you don't risk damaging the surface of the painting. So then we come to the next technique that I said I used for applying the highlights. And this is called scumbling. It's kind of the opposite of glazing because it uses opaque colors and it works best when you want to lighten values, such as with the highlights. So scumbling is also a dry brush technique as opposed to the wet technique of glazing. And if you look at works by Titian or Rembrandt or Velázquez, you can see this technique being used masterfully. The way that I do it is with a soft bristle brush, and it's actually an old brush that goes way back to my college days. And the bristles have completely fanned out and they've poofed out, and I think it used to be a filbert brush. But now I just use it to soften edges and to do my scumbling. I think a general rule for every artist is that we don't throw away any of our brushes. We only accumulate them. Anyway, so the best way to scumble is to mix up your color, and in this case I used a bit of brown pink and some crimson lake with a whole lot of titanium white so that it was pretty high in value, but not pure white, because remember, using pure white for the highlights is a no-no. And the reason for that is because it just makes the highlight look too chalky and artificial, and it just doesn't look natural. So what I'll do is I'll take my brush and very conservatively apply some paint to the bristles. And you kind of want to do that Bob Ross thing, where you just kind of very gently tap the brush into the color. And what I'll do is I'll also take a rag and I'll just kind of wipe off the brush in the rag to, number one, remove any excess from the bristles, and to make sure it's evenly distributed throughout the bristles as well. The one thing that's really challenging about scumbling as opposed to glazing is that it's much harder to wipe out scumbling than it is to wipe out glazes. And so you want to make sure you get it right the first time. Then you just proceed to very gently brush the color on the surface, again being sure that the surface of the painting is dry. This is a dry brush to a dry surface technique. And obviously for the areas of bright, localized highlight, you want to apply more pressure, and for the areas of more subtle highlight, then you want to apply less pressure. So now we come to the background, and this is where it starts to get a little strange. Most of the time for my backgrounds, such as this, I have a half plan of how it's going to go. In other words, I'll have on the one hand a very general plan and idea of what I'm going to do with the composition of the background. And on the other hand, I will also rely on my own spontaneity, creativity, and improvisation. For instance, I may scrape off areas of paint and just reapply something else, or I may just scrape it off and just leave it that way. Or I may get a wild hair and just simply apply a color that I wasn't originally thinking about applying. But in every case, even as improvised as the background may be, it's important for me that it contributes to the overall statement or story of the painting, and that it's not completely arbitrary. And one of the things that I have loved about doing this painting was actually, in particular, the pose of this figure. The more I looked at it, I started to notice that it created this spiral composition. And it actually started reminding me of the helix of an ear. And so I started to think about that, and I actually incorporated that into the background as well, and tried to contribute to that spiral composition. And I wound up titling this piece Helix. So I really hope you guys enjoyed watching this process with me, as much as I loved doing it for you. Obviously this was not meant to be full-length tutorials on how to do a painting, but they were meant more just to simply be overviews of the process that I go through. But I hope you guys took away something, and that you learned something new. So with that, as promised, I want to leave you guys with a look at the final piece. And thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you next time. God bless you all.